Now, full reversed grid, straight into it. 20 more minutes of racing here at Thruxton. And it's Mark Redford, who so nearly won this equivalent race a week ago at Brands Hatch, who is on pole position alongside Chris Shepherd, who needs a good result to turn his championship around. Red lights go out. We're away in racing for the second time tonight here at Thruxton. And it's a good start made by, again, both of the front row starters. Kenny Press and Paul Laramie third and fourth. Mark Hughes and John Jones sharing the third row of the grid. Through Allards they go. The hill now towards the complex, and here comes the first challenge for the race lead, because Chris Shepherd looks to the inside of Mark Redford. He's late on the brakes, but not late enough, and so Mark Redford will hold on to the advantage. Shepherd second, side by side there for third. 3 wide for about 5th place as they head through the middle part of the complex. Some interesting lines being taken. John Jones is off the road, pointing the wrong way, and there's more contact there at Seagrave, and that will cause carnage. Off goes Brad Smith. A car spinning around in the middle of the pack. Axelson's off the road. I think that was Reese Bell bouncing down the grass as well. Well, all things considered, Jack, that could have caught a few more drivers out, but still a little bit of chaos there in the midfield.
Yeah, and the safety car has come out, and we saw one driver running very wide through, I believe, the left-hander, and just decided to try and make the apex for the right when there were 3, 4, 5 other cars in the way, and that was always going to cause carnage, unfortunately. There was just no room for a safe rejoin, so I'm not saying I don't know what they should have done, maybe cut the corner and join a little bit later, and obviously just taken the hit in terms of a penalty, but overall it's hurt quite a few drivers, and we can actually have a look at who the drivers that were hurt. Josh Martin's still all the way down, sort of 17th place. Simon Thorpe as well has been hurt with that one. Scott Bugner, but he did start quite a lot further down as well. So yeah, fingers crossed the cars have withstood. They can withstand quite a bit of damage, these Civic Cups. They are quite sturdy machines in the sim world, and obviously in the real world as well. So fingers crossed there won't be too many sort of casualties from that little bout. But it was pretty much inevitable we were going to get something, a safety car at some point at Thruxton this evening.
Yes, let's hope, though, that is the last we see of the virtual safety car, as it is here on the virtual, of the VRRC, Virtual Reality Racing Club, which hopefully will into the pit lane at the end of the lap, because obviously we don't actually need to clear the cars out of the way. It's just an opportunity to bunch everyone back together so that those who lost ground at the start can catch back up to the tail end of grid. Let's see then. Green flags, I think, are indeed being prepared here. Mark Redford will have a safety car restart to deal with, which he had to do twice in quick succession at the start of that second Brands Hatch race last time. Out of the chicane we go, and yep, green flags flying once again. So Mark Redford gets the race back underway. Chris Shepherd second, side by side for third, and around goes Paul Laramie. That's a shame. He was in third. He's in the middle of the road now, pointing at 90 degrees through the direction of traffic. Thankfully gets that number 1 car out of harm's way. Didn't quite see there, Jack, whether he pushed or whether he was pushed or whether he jumped. But either way, that takes Laramie out of contention. That's a shame.
Yeah, I think actually it was a little bit of cold tyres on the rear end, because obviously these cars front wheel drive, the rears will take a lot longer to warm up, and I think he just overcommitted through the corner and the rear rotated on him. I could be wrong, there might have been contact, we're not entirely sure, but I wouldn't like to throw around any kind of ideas as Max Bird and Elliot Dalton-Ayres going side by side, and we like to throw around some ideas of racing here, and that's exactly what these two drivers are trying to provide with us. Andy Carroll looking very interested further back as we see Dave Buki off, and well, I think going to see the marshals that you saw off in during qualifying. Max Edmondson, our race 1 winner as well, falling well down the order, coming back on as Mark Redford has slipped down into 2nd place, and Kenny Press has gotten through. So that means there must have been a big kerfuffle going through church. Kenny Press has taken advantage. Mark Redford in 2nd place, but for not much longer, because Max Bird is overtaking him. Andy Carroll and Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Chris Shepherd all lining up to try and take the last podium positions.
Did you get all that? Right, through the chicane, Chris Shepherd's really getting roughed up here, isn't he? Dropping down the order into 6th position. What a shame for Max Edmondson, though. He will be hoping that this doesn't become the theme of his season, a race 1 win, and then a bit of a disaster in the reverse grid. Chris Shepherd gives the hip and shoulder there to Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who won't have liked that, and may well choose to give him one back going through the middle part of the complex, because he's on the outside line going in. If he hangs it tough there, they will have the inside line for the middle part. He doesn't, and steaming up the inside of everyone there was Joel Lask, who then gets contact as well. He's sideways in front of everyone. Dave Buki tries to come around the outside line there. No, that's not Buki, that's one of the other Kinetic drivers. in that little group. There is Dave Bookie, who's had a bit of a shunt with Brad Smith, I'm afraid, towards the tail end of the grid. Right, let's try and sort this one out. Through Noble they go. Dalton Ayres looks as though he's about to break through there into 6th position, which he does. Mark Hughes, that is, side by side with Scott Buckner behind him. And then Will Redford is that kinetic car, isn't it, that might well try and make it 3 wide up towards the next corner. His father, though, is grass tracking and will surely fall behind the lot of them.
Yeah, he has to get back on, and he's going to be very slow, and a lot of cars are starting to catch him going through church. It's a dangerous place to be, dangerous place to try and catch everyone. They're about 4 or 5 wide, as I believe that's Mark Hughes just flying off the circuit. But how are they going to get into club chicane? We'll never know. Well, we will know, but God knows how we're going to follow it, put it that way. Will Redford getting up ahead of Elliot Dalton Ayres. Scott Buckner leading the rest of them. Joel Lask is in there trying to make moves. Mark Redford, there we go, is just about slotting in the middle. And I don't know how he has finished in the middle of that little pack, but he has, and he's recovered, and he'll be able to fight on from there as Eric Axelson at the back of the field. To be honest, in 14th place is not that far away from a top 5 at this rate, because look how far the top 3 are ahead of everybody else. Kenny Press, Max Bird, and Andy Carroll are flying.
Round of applause to all of them, though, for getting through that chicane in one piece, because I, like you, would have put money on at least 2 of them ending up in the tyre wall, but that didn't happen, so really good driving there to sort that out and get it back to single file. Max Edmondson's race, I'm afraid, is going from bad to worse. Did he tangle with Simon Thorpe? Not sure, but Simon's certainly recovering from an incident at the same part of the circuit. Right, this is for the race lead. Max Bird, Kenny Press. Kenny Press is going to be the Mick Sutton of this race, I think, isn't he? It's fair to say that we don't often get to see Kenny Press up here fighting for race victories. Yes, it's a reverse grid win, but he's hanging on to the coattails here of Max Bird, and we know how quick Max can be in these cars, so this is an impressive performance from Kenny, and indeed Andy Carroll very much going with them in 3rd position. That's not a good place for contact. Carl Felvers into the back of Mick Sutton, who then gets another serve from Josh Martin, that was, wasn't it? So 2 bits of contact at the fastest bit of the track, and somehow Sutton hangs on to it.
Yeah, if he was actually in the car, I think Mick Sutton would be a bit battered and bruised with that, and potentially have a little bit of whiplash, because there was a lot of action sideways and then front and back as well from the likes of Felvers and Josh Martin. Felvers is the driver that actually lost out in all of that. I think he's a very clean and fair racer, is Kyle. He knows exactly when it's his fault, and we saw that at with him and Mark Redford at Brands Hatch, where he held his hands up. He accidentally knocked Mark Redford off after Redford looked like he was probably going to take a podium in race 2 in that reverse grid. Unfortunately, Carl made a little bit of contact through the GP loop, and it finished Mark Redford's race, really. I think he finished at around 10th place, but Will actually, Kyle actually gave up a load of places to let Mark back through, which is very impressive. Right, back forward, and this is the 5 of the top 10. This is between Mark Redford, Josh Martin, Carl Felvers, and Mick Sutton. So, again, we're almost roles repeat, and lap after lap, we're seeing the same names at the same sort of fight. How long can it last? I'm not sure, as Mark Redford gets shown the left-hand side of the circuit, ends up rally crossing yet again, and for, I think, the 5th time today, finds himself on the grass in this race number 2. 3 wide into Church Corner. Mick Sutton on the inside and manages to get past Carl Felvers, Andy Dorman, and Josh Martin gets overtaken by Axelson.
Josh Martin nearly got taken out by Eric Axelson there, or somebody anyway, because there were 2 cars. One of them was Martin making contact into Church Corner. They both arrived at the corner completely sideways. Somehow, by the way, Max Edmondson, you were on board with him there briefly as he overtook Reese Bell for 13th place. Somehow, he is on the tail of this group, which means that he's within touching distance of a top 10 finish. And from a championship perspective for Edmondson, that would be very, very useful indeed. If he can get himself into that top 10, or some decent points at least. It might not be a podium, but at least some decent points towards his championship challenge. That would be good news indeed. Mark Redford, I'm afraid there's no good news for him. He's off the road, as is Dave Bookie, who's playing a little bit hot and cold tonight, isn't he? That brilliant 4th place in race 1, but he'll be looking to break any further up the order than 20th with a broken car in this one.
You mentioned championship, though, and drivers who are doing well, scoring good points. Actually, Scott Buckner is a driver I'd want to be. He's currently 2nd in the championship after that race 1. He was 2 points ahead, 2 points behind Max Edmondson. And if it finishes like this, we'll wave the checkered flag at the end of this lap, Scott Buckner will actually be scoring a heap of amounts of points to take that championship lead back ahead of him. Mick Sutton and Elliot Dalton Ayres. Elliot on the inside, Mick on the outside, and I think just touched the grass going through just before they entered Church Corner. It means Eric Axelson will probably get the move done going towards the chicane yet again. So although Mick was absolutely flying in race 1, maybe in the traffic it's a little bit of a harder course of action for him, but he's still doing a bang-up job, I would say, in 10th position, and giving us a lot of entertainment, I would say, tonight.
No, he absolutely is. This is very entertaining stuff in the midfield here, side by side. Edmondson on the attack again. Up the inside this time of Andy Dorman for 11th place. He's got the inside line. He's over the curb. He's almost into the door. He is into the door of Dorman, who is sideways, collects him back the other way. Onto the grass goes Edmondson. Dorman somehow saves it. Brilliant car control again. He exits stage right across the grass. No, that's Edmondson on the grass, excuse me. So I thought Edmondson had gathered that together. Careful on the rejoin, Max. That was like a scene out of the World Rally Championship, that. The car nose-diving into the ground, and that will have done the already damaged Honda Civic absolutely no good at all. But that, again, was a really high-speed bit of contact. You just can't have that casual contact here in the same way that you can get away with it at some of the slower tracks. If you start touching each other at these speeds, it is going to end in tears.
Yeah, and even though front-wheel drive is a little bit more forgiving than rear-wheel drive when it comes to a little bit of contact here and there and a bit of door banging and all that sort of thing, you're absolutely right. We're so on edge. We're basically on the edge of the tyre wall and the edge of the grip constantly here at Thruxton that just the tiniest little nudges just end up catapulting basically someone into a tyre wall. I think we've seen a lot of incidents so far today. I'm actually quite impressed with how little have actually ended in pure DNFs. We only had 2 DNFs in race number 1. We have 3 here so far in race 2, which obviously isn't ideal, but I was expecting about 10 in each race. So I would be fairly impressed if these drivers are able to carry on here in the Civic Cup. So fair play to them, and obviously fair play to the car as well, because clearly it's quite a sturdy bit of kit. Eric Axelsen just ahead of Kyle Felvis, and these 2 drivers, once upon a time, were probably championship contenders, especially in the Porsche Cayman Cup that we actually had about a month or 2 ago, Andy. And it's unusual to see them fighting for, well, to stay in contention for top 10s.
Yeah, certainly Kyle Felvis, from what we saw in the Cayman Cup even just a few weeks ago, he was up there contending for the championship, wasn't he? So yeah, a little bit odd to see him just not quite getting to grips with front-wheel drive, and I think he'd be the first to admit that front-wheel drive isn't necessarily his cup of tea, and you know, that's fair enough. It is a very different driving style required for a front-wheel drive tin top than it is for a rear-wheel drive sports car or GT car. So yeah, not necessarily going to see the same drivers excelling from one championship to the other. Now, Max Edmondson, don't ask me how, is into the top 10 now because he goes up the inside of the star of the show in race 1, Mick Sutton, and that rather delays Mick, so it means that Josh Martin also now gets the run on him and gets 11th place away too. So Mick Sutton fading down the order, but Edmondson closing up, and that's Will Redford in the tyres. Will Redford from 5th place is off the chicane. Another one who falls victim to those very, very sturdy tyre stacks at the club chicane. A real shame that for Will Redford, who arrived here, let me remind you, second in the championship after that brilliant drive to a race victory in the reverse grid race a week ago. He's not going to be able to repeat that, though, here at Thruxton, unfortunately. He's out of the top 10.
Yeah, I don't think a driver of the round is a Valeting kit is going to be going Will Redford's way, unfortunately, tonight. But at least he has had one so far in this championship. So, yeah, you get your good days, you get your bad days. And for Will, this has been one of the bad days, unfortunately. Some drivers would probably say that they have more bad days than good days. But the likes of Dave Buki, I'm sure, probably not overly impressive. 3 bad races and 1 good one so far. He's probably due a little bit of luck later in the championship. Carl Felvis still struggling to get past on Eric Axelsen here. This is the fight for 7th position. One of the closest that we've got on circuit. This is another one of the closest we got on circuit as well with Reese Bell. And I believe that's obviously a damaged Will Redford who just can't seem to keep it on the track at the moment. That'll be a mixture of things. 1, probably a damaged car. And 2, obviously a little bit of dirt on tyres as Axelsen goes offensive very, very early on Kyle Felvis. I think we can all assume where Axelsen's car is going to end up. It's going to be right on that inside line as he actually goes to the middle, hits the braking zone, keeps Kyle on the outside, and potentially invites Max Edmondson to come and have a little bit of a pop at Kyle's car, but it's not happening just yet. But you can see in the rear view mirrors, Edmondson is hunting them down.
Tell you what, I know he's been involved in a couple of incidents in this race, but hasn't Max Edmondson recovered well from that? Through Allard's corner he goes. He's in 9th place. He's been off the road at least 3 times in this race that we've seen. He's got damage to the front of his car and now goes up the inside of 2 people. That's never going to work, surely. Well, he gets past one of them, gets past Kyle Felvers. He almost got into the side of Eric Axelson, actually. That was so late on the brakes. But he does manage to separate these 2 for the time being. Out through Seagrave they go, and he once again starts to get the overlap on the green Honda Civic of Eric Axelson for 7th position. Round the outside at Noble, though, is a brave place to try and go. It's flat out pretty much in these Honda Civics, and he manages to keep his foot buried to the floor. And to the inside now, into Goodwood corner he goes. He leans on Axelson slightly. Eric Axelson is not going to give in, but he gets 2 wheels on the grass, and that surely now will allow at least Edmondson through, maybe Felvers as well.
Yeah, Felvers has got through, but what could Edmondson do about him this time round? The HFT Motorsport driver throwing everything at him, as I think Axelson might actually get Carl back in towards the club chicane, but Edmondson throwing his substantial weight of that 40 kilograms of ballast on board and throwing it around rather efficiently, I would say. 5 minutes to go. This is where we saw Edmondson's 40 kilograms start eating his tyres slightly, but he hasn't been able to do as many hot laps. He's been carving through traffic, which might have slowed him up. That might have kept his tyres a little bit of life in them. And actually, he's pulled away really substantially from Carl Felvers through that final chicane, so Edmondson is absolutely flying.
Yes, he is already getting away, look, by a second over Felvers. Now he's 5 seconds behind Elliot Dalton-Ayres as Mark Hughes recovers from an off at the chicane. But yeah, Edmondson 5 seconds behind 6th place now, and I don't think he's quite going to have the time to get there. A good point you make about the tyres, though, because yeah, you're absolutely right. At this point in the previous race, Edmondson was really struggling for grip. Here, he's continuing to march forward. So, yeah, really impressive stuff this from Max Edmondson. From the back of the grid, a couple of incidents, at least, and he's up into 7th place now. That's Reece Bell with a good bit of car control. It loses him some ground to the cars with whom he was fighting, but manages, I think, to hold on to 13th place there, having gone off, going out of the complex. Down towards Church Corner we will go once again. Running out of time here, aren't we? Still plenty of battles, though, to be decided, including this one for 8th place.
Yeah, the one for 8th place is actually the one we've been focusing on the majority of the time. Whenever we've cut away to see an incident, we've always come back to this one, because Axelson and Felvers are throwing quite literally everything at it. The kitchen sink and everything in between sort of thing for Axelson as he runs off the circuit, trying to get that extra couple of inches of track as he goes up the inside of Felvers. There's a little bit of contact, I'm not entirely sure. Felvers jumps over the curbs. It doesn't make contact with the wall, which is obviously what we love to see. We want to see this as clean as potentially possible. As Josh Martin joins the fray, and if he's anything like Max Edmondson, he'll carve his way through rather efficiently and drive off as they continue to fight. But they're going to go side by side, not only on the exit of the final corner, but through the chicane by the looks of it. How's this one going to end, Andy? God only knows, because Josh Martin is very much there, and he's thinking this is for the taking.
Yeah, definitely. He is in prime position here as those two start to trip over each other. Keep an eye on the third car in shot. He goes from the extreme outside to the extreme inside through Seagrave corner. Gets himself past Kyle Felvers and also gets himself with his nose ahead of Axelson. Forget the nose, he's got the whole car ahead as they go into Noble. Brilliant driving that. He anticipated the situation perfectly, and Josh Martin gets himself into 8th place. Already these three are 3 seconds behind Edmondson, who has taken a second out of the Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Kenny Press battle for 5th, but I just think he's going to run out of time slightly before we get to the end of the race. Down toward Church Corner we go. Axelson looking to the inside of Martin there, but that's a brave place to try and make a move. All 3 of them run a little bit wide. Certainly Martin does, and that will now surely compromise his run up the hill towards the chicane.
Yeah, it was actually good driving from the drivers behind Martin, because it's so easy to follow their line or take a little bit extra speed in as they're going towards the chicane. Axelson really late on the brakes, but he's going to have to skip the chicane. He's going to have to go straight on. Now, that's very interesting. I think that's the first time we've seen it this entire evening. Josh Martin goes through. Axelson has to slot behind both of them, because otherwise he would get a post-race penalty. That's very important. We've got to explain that to us by Dave Marshall, the race director here at VRRC for the Civic Cup. And he said, basically, if you can cut the chicane, but you have to give the time and places back, otherwise you will receive a penalty, which is only fair, really. And it's the sort of what you would assume to do, but just making sure everybody knows that is what we're doing. Now, this is for the fight for the race lead. We have seen so much battling up and down the order. We've neglected to watch the front 3. And this is the fight that it's turned into. Andy Carroll has hunted down Max Bird, less than a tenth of a second between them. We are on the penultimate lap, ladies and gentlemen. This won't be finished. We will have hopefully one more lap of racing. And I can tell you what, Scott Bugner looks like he might be very interested in a race victory here. He's not close enough to join the battle, but if these two get a little bit carried away, Bugner will have all the points to himself.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't bet against that, to be honest. Andy Carroll, with only one top 10 finish to his credit out of the 3 races so far. That was a 6th place in the reverse grid race at Brands Hatch last time. So he's already on course to better his previous best result, get his first podium of the season. But as you said, he's perhaps just under a lap away from getting the win. He's under a lap away, one good overtake away from getting his first win in category. Is he going to be willing, though, to put it all on the line and make an aggressive move? Because Max Bird ain't going to give this to him on a plate. It's very unlikely that someone of Max's experience will make a mistake here. So Andy Carroll will have to make this happen himself. Is he content with second, or will he take the risk for the race victory? Well, didn't make a move through the complex there. So Andy Carroll, I'm sure will have many fans cheering him on, because it's not every day that you see Andy up there fighting for a race victory. It's one of the things I've really enjoyed tonight the most, is seeing so many drivers getting a shot at the front of the field, and this is surely Carroll's best opportunity. Gets a really good run through Goodwood Corner, forces Max Bird to drive defensively towards Church. You don't want to go in here on a tight line, because that will slow you down on the exit. So Bird manages to get over to the left-hand side of the road, carries good speed through the corner. Carroll is faster, though, looks to the inside. That will always be covered by Max Bird, the race leader. It is side by side for the race lead into the final braking zone of the race. Carroll on the outside, Bird on the inside line. Max Bird has led pretty much all of this race, but Andy Carroll, with 20 kilos less in the car, saved his tyres for one last run at him. He's not going to get there, though. It'll be second for Carroll. It'll be a race win for Max Bird, who crosses the finish line now to get his first podium of the season, and it's a race victory to boot. Andy Carroll, likewise, his first appearance on the podium in second, with Scott Bugner in third. Joel Last fourth. Elliot Dalton Ayres will come through in 5th place. 6th for Kenny Press, who will be 7th. That's going to be a drag race to the line, because it was a slightly scrappy run there for Josh Martin, and almost it's Felvers on the inside. But for 8th place, it's Martin. 9th place is Felvers, both of them behind Edmondson in 7th. And Eric Axelson rounds out the top 10. Well, Jack, another supremely close run to the finish there. Can we have every round at Thruxton, please? I've really enjoyed the 2 races tonight.
Well, I've been keeping an eye on the YouTube chat through the evening, and I think Nikki Taylor would agree with you. It does provide fantastic action, and as I said, even the reverse grid, which had its little bit of, well, we expected a failure or two, shall we say, in the first couple of corners, even that really didn't diminish what was a fantastic reverse grid race. And really well done to Max Bird. Andy Carroll, I loved what Andy Carroll did there as well, Andy, because obviously he was going for the race victory. He was putting all the pressure on Max Bird, trying everything he could to try and let him make a mistake without putting himself under too much pressure and potentially throwing away his second place either. So really smart driving by Andy. Love to see those drivers on the podium.
Absolutely. Brilliant race that. Very entertaining and clean as well throughout, at least at the front of the field. It was, though, Max Bird who came out with the race victory only just, and he, along with the other 2 podium finishers, joins us now in the commentary box. Max, huge congratulations on the race win. First time we've seen you on the podium this season so far. You had to really work for that there, though. Andy Carroll was really coming at you hard towards the end of the race.
Yeah, for sure. I think Andy's really hooked up that last sector, really. I was being quite careful through there because I can't quite see the barriers properly on entry. So, yeah, really happy with that. But definitely Andy drove a great race.
Yeah, Andy closing in there towards the end. We've been talking about tyres all night, and certainly we heard that Max Edmondson was running out of tyres a bit towards the end of race 1. You were 20 kilos heavier than Andy in that race, so how much of a part do you think that played in the way that Andy was able to close in there towards the end?
Yeah, obviously it means he's got a little bit more straight line speed, but obviously the added weight on my car obviously affects the tyres as well. So I think Andy drove a great race, and I was really pushing for that one.
You really were, and we've spoken a lot about Andy. Let's talk about you and what this means for your season, because you've had an okay start to the season. Certainly, you got yourself a 4th and a 9th place last time at Brands Hatch, 6th earlier on in the evening. But to get that first win now, you know yourself from real world and sim racing experience, you get that first win of the season, and it just starts ball rolling a bit, doesn't it? Gets that momentum on your side to start building a championship challenge.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I think I'll obviously have some more weight now, which is a bit of a annoying factor. But we're coming up to, I think, Alton Park is it next? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and yeah, I think we'll be quick.
Good stuff. Well, you were quick tonight, certainly quick enough to just about hang on to the win in the second race of the night. Max, congratulations.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Max Bird then gets himself the race victory, becomes the third different winner from 4 races so far this season. It almost wasn't a Max Bird victory though. Andy Carroll was chasing him down towards the end, and he can catch up now with Jack.
Andy, that would have been a very, very popular victory there. It's a very, very popular second place though. You must be pleased with how that race went.
Yeah, if someone had offered me P2 in any of this series at any point, I would have bitten their hand off.
I was going to say, how close were you to just throwing everything at that race win? Because as I said leading up to the interviews, to me, it looked like you were piling the pressure on, but you didn't really want to risk that second place being thrown away to Scott Bugner as well. Were you sort of a little bit more conservative than maybe you would be if it was sort of later in the season?
No, I don't think. I think I had watching Max. You know, I was able to brake a lot later into the first chicane, so I was sort of gaining a lot of time when in there, and it was just didn't have enough speed. You know, coming into that last chicane, you know, it's hard to really get an overlap once he's gone defensive on the right hand side coming into the last chicane. You know, there's not a huge amount you can do other. So yeah, no, I think once he'd taken that line down the final straight, it was kind of just have to settle for second at that point. But I was not at all complaining about second.
I was going to say, for a lot of that race as well, we focused on battles further back because you three really did pull away nice and early. Was it just a case of, did you ever think, okay, I really want to chase up to that race lead, or was it just a case of, you know what, let's put some qualifying laps in and we'll see where it gets me by the end?
Yeah, I was trying to stay with Max because I knew Scott would be coming through behind. So I was just trying to stay in his draft and sort of follow him around. And then, yeah, just towards the end of the race, the extra weight he was carrying obviously had a big impact on his tyres, so I was able to close up for those last few laps. But yeah, no, the plan was just to try and keep up with him for as long as possible.
Well, it did work a treat really, because he secured obviously that second place. Big congratulations, Andy. Hopefully
Thanks,
we'll have a chat with you next time.
I hope so.
Excellent stuff, and yeah, I echo Jack's sentiments. A brilliant performance there for second for Andy Carroll. Now, the man in third place had a bit of a grandstand view of that battle towards the end of the race and was probably hoping that they might delay each other enough that he could join in, but nonetheless it was a really solid third place finish in the end for Scott Bugner. And Scott, pretty good night this for you really. Qualified second, 2 third place finishes, and you've bagged the championship lead, we reckon, at the end of the night, so I guess you'd settle for that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, it was a bit sketchy at the start. I got put 90 degrees sideways out of the complex, and I was back in, I think it was about 18th after the first lap, so I thought, oh, here we go, this is going to be one of them races. But just sort of managed to carve my way through and as clean as I could, and next minute I know I was in third, and I thought, oh, well, I'll sit here and relax, that'll do. Yeah, I was going to mention that because there was so much kicking off there at the start. You were lucky to survive the moment that you did have, and from that point, you just get your head down and start overtaking people, I guess. And we saw you pulled off some really nice moves along the way. There's almost less to lose in that situation, isn't there? When you've already been tagged sideways and survived, well, you may as well just get stuck in from then on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was sort of, angry driving, but, being as clean as possible, and... yeah, I tried to do it as clean as I could. A little bit of rubbing here and there, but that's motor racing, and yeah, managed to come through to third. You've been Mr. Consistency really so far. You have not yet finished any worse than 4th place in a race, but you also haven't won a race yet. So I mean, consistency can win championships, but I'm sure you'd like to try and get yourself on the top step of the podium next week, wouldn't you? I'd like to, yeah, but. It's a long game. I've been motor racing for years, and I've lost it in the last race, and you just need to stack the points where you can. And I saw Max was down in sort of 16th or 17th at one point, so I thought, well, get my way through and try and sort of gap him as much as I could. Well, all things considered, a brilliant night of racing. 2 third-place finishes, including that dramatic start to race 2 that you survived. So we've got our heads together and come to the decision that you are the worthy recipient of our Driver of the Round award for tonight. So the Power Max Valeting kit on its way to you for the good result in race 1, and then that really good fighting drive in race 2. So well done for that. Scott Bugner then, 3rd place in both races, takes away, we believe, the championship lead from Thruxton and the Power Max Valeting kit as well. A good night's work for Scott Bugner. And, well, that is the end of the racing action then here tonight at Thruxton. Let's see what that all means for the championship standings. And yes, we got our maths right. Scott Bugner is indeed the points leader by 5 points over Max Edmondson, who, for me, was actually second in line for that driver of the day because he won that first race despite carrying all the weight. And then how many times did we see him off the road in race 2? He still managed to bag some good points in inside the top 10 and leaves Thruxton second in the championship. 6 points then clear of our most recent race winner, Max Bird, with Joel Last 3 points further back. Josh Martin still doing well in 5th ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Mick Sutton moves into the top 10 now. Will Redford 8, Eric Axelson in 9th, and Andy Carroll rounding out that top 10 with everyone else filtering in behind. An interesting looking championship table, that, Jack, as we head towards the next rounds of the championship. Not necessarily the order I would have predicted a couple of weeks ago. Jack, that shocked at the way that they...
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. My apologies there, Andy.
I thought I'd stunned you into silence there, Jack.
The whole racing had stunned me into silence. So, I was actually going to point out that a few drivers are still out of position. I would probably say Dave Buki, realistically. I mean, he's had 3 bad races and 1 good one. And that good one shows that he should be a lot further up the order. He's just been a bit unlucky. And obviously Chris Shepherd as well, somehow still down in 23rd position with 17 points. He's been very quick and actually started on the front row of race 2. So again, one of those drivers that you just think, how on earth is he not higher up, sort of thing. So yeah, going to be very, very hotly contested championship. Very much looking forward to seeing how the series plays out. But we very quickly, before we go, we obviously have to point out a few things that are happening at VRRC. So here we go. Obviously, you know the kit and caboodle now. You know the spiel. Forza Horizon 5, you casual sim racers out there who enjoy Xbox and just sort of like just chilling out at the end of an evening maybe of hard-fought competitive sim racing. Down at the bottom right, you've got Assetto Corsa. Now that is the championship that you've seen today, which of course is the Maximum Networks Civic Cup and ran by VRRC. We've also got the Bridge to Gantry Challenge as well. The BMW M240i is the car and the Nordschleife is the track. Very, very difficult. I think it's the Tourist Harton, I think is how it's pronounced. So I could be saying that horrifically wrong. But that's got a fantastic, I think it's AOC monitors that are all the prizes for that one. That looks really cool. Time Attacks as well in a, I think that's an LMP car, prototype car. I can't pronounce the actual name of it. That's around Barcelona. So the JSP3, if anybody out there knows what that is, around Barcelona as well. There's actually monetary prizes for that one as well. And then there's the Fun Cup as well, which at the moment is the BMW M2. I believe they've got Interlagos, or maybe actually Road America coming up this Saturday. So that, and the Fun Cup is actually free to race as well. So if you're into it and you're sort of interested in what's going on at VRRC, but you don't want to commit to buying a membership or going into this main championship, the Fun Cup in the BMW is a fantastic little championship that you can just go and enjoy it and see how you get on compared to a lot of the other drivers that you see. Then you got Assetto Corsa Competizione and Dirt Rally 2.0 as well. Equally, they've got endurance races on Competizione and they've got weekly stages in Dirt as well. I believe there's iRacing as well coming up with VRRC. There's loads of stuff that you can get involved in. So head over to virtualrealityracingclub.com. Normally, we send you to the Discord, but actually we're sending you to the website this time around, so you can get a better understanding and a better overview of everything that's to do with the VRRC, and then you can join the Discord knowing a little bit more sort of thing. So head over to virtualrealityracingclub.com for all your virtual reality racing needs.
Beautifully done, as always, Jack. Yes, indeed, head over there to see how you can get your own little slice of the racing action. Well, we had plenty of racing action here tonight at Thruxton. Hope you all enjoyed it. I know I certainly did. Be sure to join us again next week for the 3rd night of racing and the 5th and 6th rounds of the hugely exciting VRRC Civic Cup. It's sure to be a fascinating night next week because we'll be reaching the halfway mark of the championship. They're just 6-week championships, these, short and sweet, and it means that you've got to get on with it. Alton Park Island circuit is the venue before we head to Silverstone on the national circuit. Croft on the 1st of June, where myself and Jack will be spending hopefully a nice sunny weekend talking about some real cars this weekend, and then Donington Park National Circuit on the 8th of June. That is, though, I think all we have time for here tonight on the VRRC. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been Andy McEwen with Jack Oliphant alongside me. A huge thanks to Dave Marshall, Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast, everyone who helps put these broadcasts and indeed these racing series together. We'll all be back again in a week's time at Upton Park, and hopefully you'll be there to join us too.
Woo!